Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am doing 30 books that I would keep. Marie Kondo is a big thing right now. You go through and you choose what to keep based on whether it gives you joy. Apparently that's a thing. And I saw Haley from Haley and Bookland do this video. Marie Kondo recommends that you try and keep no more than 30 books. 30! I don't know how to process that, but it's fine. I don't have to get rid of any of my books because I don't do that. But I thought it would be interesting to go through my books and try to remember what I have. Remember what I have in Colorado, but also to see if I could come up with 30 books that I absolutely couldn't get rid of. This was particularly hard because a lot of my books are series or an author that I particularly love, Mercedes Lackey being the big one. But I did come up with 30 books that I decided to keep. We're going to start with the ones that I don't have with me. The first 7 being, you guessed it, Harry Potter. I would keep all 7 of these books. I currently have 3 versions of the series. I have the hardback set of them that I got for high school graduation from my aunts and uncles. I got the British version of them that I hauled back from South Africa. By the way, ship them or put them under the plane because carrying them on your back hurts. And I have the paperback set that when you line them all up, Hogwarts is on the spine. But I would only keep one of them because while I love all 3 of them and I'm not getting rid of them because that would be stupid, if I could only keep 30 books, I would only keep one set. The next one is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I read this when I was in high school simultaneously with Les Miserables, which, by the way, don't do that. But I absolutely loved War and Peace, and it is in Colorado, so I haven't been able to reread it, but when I get it, I will definitely be rereading it because I miss it. We'll come back to those because they'll come back to me as I go. The next one is The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. I also read this one in high school and we did a whole presentation on it. This book is actually the reason I didn't read The Great Gatsby in high school. In my English class in 10th grade, we split the class in 2. Half of them read The Great Gatsby and the other half of us read The Good Earth. We, as a group, had to come up with a presentation for that book. My group brought in one of those screens that you set up that kind of sets off the room. We did a demonstration of foot binding. We brought in mooncakes with messages in them. We gave people trash bag ponchos and sprayed them for the flood. We gave them little cups of dirt at the end and told them to stay close to the earth because that was our theme. We just went all out and we had a great time. And I still remember the book, so this one I would keep, if only for the fond memories, but also it's a really good book. Next I have 2 books by Mercedes Lackey that I have 3. Next I have 3 books by Mercedes Lackey that are some of my favorites and that really stood out to me. One being Illnet by Moonlight, which she co-wrote with Roberta Gellis. This is a fairy story set in 15 something. Basically, Elizabeth is a princess in this, and she is taken into the fairy world. I love Elizabeth, as you well know, so I had to keep my favorite author who wrote about Elizabeth and fairies. The next one is a standalone in her Valdemar series, and that is Brightly Burning. This follows a young man who has a magical talent he didn't know of, and that is incredibly rare. Yes, that trope again. However, I love it. It is one of the 3 books that has ever made me cry, and that would be why I kept it. And then the last one is By the Sword. This one follows a female mercenary in Valdemar. It's also a standalone, and I just remember absolutely loving this one. I loved the relationships and how this woman developed and what happened to her that was so tragic. I haven't read it in a while, so I can't tell you exactly, but it was fantastic. Then I have one of my poetry books, actually, and that is Ruben de Rio's De Símbolo a la Realidad. Basically, it's a bunch of his poems put in here, And I chose this one because he has an ode to Roosevelt that I read translated in English in one of my college humanities classes and loved it. He was basically attacking the states, and since I do that on a fairly regular basis verbally, I loved it and I really connected. His poems are even more beautiful in the original Spanish, and since my friend Katie went to Nicaragua and he is Nicaraguan, I have that extra connection. I would also keep, not this book, but The Count of Monte Cristo, which I don't have up here, by Alexander Dumas. I read The Count of Monte Cristo. It's his only book that I've read, but I absolutely loved it. I think he's a fantastic writer, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading the rest of his works. But if I can only have 30 books, then I would keep The Count of Monte Cristo because, according to my father, that is his best work, and I trust my dad's judgment. Speaking of my father, one of the other books that I don't own physically is Shogun by James Clavell. This is also one that I would keep. I am currently listening to it on audiobook. I read it in high school, and my dad owns all 6 of that series. I would keep Shogun because that is definitely my favorite. It is set in 1600 Japan and follows an Englishman named Blackthorn who ends up shipwrecked in Japan and winds up being intricately involved in the politics there, trying to learn the language and the culture as an Englishman who basically thinks that anybody not white is uncivilized, and the Japanese who think that anybody not Japanese is uncivilized. It's very interesting to read, fantastic book, definitely long, but when my dad decides to get rid of those, they're mine. Next, I would keep White Fang by Jack London. This was the first book that had a word I didn't know in it when I read it. The word was ominous, and it's on the first page. I love this book. I love the idea of domesticating a wolf. Basically, I know that that's something that we did, but now we have yappy little chihuahuas and stupid teacup poodles as opposed to actual dogs or wolves, and this one just really hit me, especially with the descriptions. Then we go back to poetry with Federico Garcia Lorca. I have a special place in my heart for him because we visited his house, I believe, and also there was a park named after him in Granada, Spain when I studied abroad there, where we read some of his works aloud in Spanish, obviously, and his poems are beautiful. I did a whole paper on several of them. I really love Spanish poems, definitely more than I love English poems, and Lorca and Darío are some of my favorites. Then I'd go to a book that I read fairly recently, which is Moloka'i by Alan Brennert. This follows a girl who is 7 at the beginning in the late 1890s Hawaii, and she is diagnosed with leprosy and sent to Moloka'i, which is at the time a leper colony. This book talks about life and dealing with disease and just everything. I absolutely loved it, and the second one comes out this month. Next, we have To Dance with Kings by Rosalind Laker. I would keep this book because it talks about an era in which I am not particularly familiar, that is to say, well, Versailles, Louis the 14th, 15th, and kind of the 16th. Nope, I don't even remember. This book deals with Versailles, specifically Louis the 14th and a little bit Louis the 15th as well, but it follows sort of 3 generations at Versailles, and this is the first book that made me rant to Katie. I read this when she was in Nicaragua, and we would send rants back and forth about books, and by we I mean she would send text message rants to me. She gets much more heated about books than I do, and I was so angry at Dominic in this book, so angry at what he did, that I actually sent Katie like a page-long text message ranting about how stupid this guy was and he shouldn't have done what he did, and she was so proud of me, so I would keep this for that memory. Also, it's a good book. I would also keep Liberty by Kimberly Iverson. This is set in sort of London and Rome. Basically, a woman from the British Isles is taken captive by Rome and enslaved. She becomes a female gladiator, falls in love, you know, all the usual stuff. I really enjoy this book, obviously, or I wouldn't be keeping it, but it's, again, set somewhere I don't usually read about. I think it's phenomenally well done, and it's not insta-love, and it all develops well. And I would keep Cry of the Ice Merc by Stuart Hill. I would only keep the first book because I do like the first book best, but this follows Thurin, who is 13 years old and punches a werewolf on page 3. She has to fight for the survival of her kingdom, and I love her fierceness and the relationships that develop in this. And I would keep up my bind up of the Lord of the Rings. 1, because it means I get to keep 3 books while saying I keep 1, and 2, because I love the Lord of the Rings, and 3, because I bought this when I was overseas last year for my friend's wedding. It's actually their 1-year anniversary when I'm filming this. And I think this is just a beautiful cover, and I don't want to get rid of it, so keeping. And I would keep 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, which I also bought when I was over there. This one I bought at Harrods. But this is just such an adorable edition, and this book blew me away. Loved it, loved it, loved it, and I'm excited to get into some of his other works. I would then also keep The Zong, A Massacre, the Law, and the End of Slavery by James Walvin. This talks about a ship where quite a few slaves, I think a third of the slaves on the ship, were thrown overboard in chains because, well, for no reason, actually, none whatsoever. I learned about this a rather roundabout way. One of the actors in the recent Beauty and the Beast played the was in a movie that had to do with the lawyers and the judges on the case, and it turns out the shipholders lost because, while yes, the Africans were still treated as property, which is horrible, but back then normal. They said that there were at least 3 ports they should have stopped at to get water, which is the excuse they gave for throwing them overboard. So you had no excuse for throwing them overboard. You do not get reimbursed for their value, which is a good step in the right direction. But all that is to say, I got this. I clearly have a lot of memories of it, and it enraged me to the extent that I need to learn more. It is also British history, not American history, which I love. And then I would keep all 3 of the Graceling series by Kristen Cashore, which includes Fire, Graceling, and Bitterblue. Graceling has a lot of memories to me. I bought it when it first came out. It just sounded amazing. I've recommended it to everybody everywhere because I still think it's amazing. And it follows a girl with 2 different colored eyes, which means that she has a talent. Turns out her talent is for killing, and she meets a strange man with also 2 different colored eyes who apparently can meet her at her level in fighting, and they both have secrets, and they have to find out why this man's grandfather was kidnapped. Love this book, and the other 2, would not give them up. We're almost done. And when I remember the other books that I said I would, because I'm gonna have to count these, I'll let you know. This should come as no surprise. I would keep the biography of Elizabeth I by Alison Weir. Love Elizabeth. This needs no introduction or explanation. I can't not keep a book about her. And then the last one is The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. This is a nonfiction that follows the Silk Road region from about 0 to today. It is a phenomenally organized, well-written book that explores how that region influenced history and how history influenced it. Loved it and would not get rid of it. I know that I am missing a book or 2 because I've forgotten what I said I would keep from Colorado. So when I remember what they are, I will come at you from editing and let you know. But those are the 30 books that I would keep. I am clearly not getting rid of any of my books because I don't do that, and actually I'm going to a book sale later, so that's gonna be fun. That's all I have though. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.